SSE. Now, the concept of this one, I'll first of all try to explain the concept. What is SSE, or normally we call it SaaS as well. And then we'll go on to the Microsoft journey. Now, this is being introduced by Microsoft last year, but I would not say still it's 100% perfect. Not all the components are there at the moment, but we are getting there. And then in the end, I'll also explain how you also can participate for that one, because Microsoft really want to have some feedbacks on certain areas for improvement. So there's a way where your user voice also going to be make impactful. I'll explain about that one. So that's been said. My name is Susant Silva, and I'm work for Datacom as a cloud consultant. And apart from that, I'm active MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer, which I'm really fond of about delivering technical sessions like this, and then classes all around the customers as well as the students as well. That being said, agenda is very simple one. I'll talk about like legacy network security challenges, where I would really love to see have a positive conversation with you all, if you all can share your input on that one. And then we'll talk about what is the Microsoft SSE is all about. Now, before I go into that one, I took this picture actually from the Fortinet. Now, to explain about this as a component, security as a service, edge service. Now, what will happen is typically in a normal office environment, you will have your firewalls, proxy, and the endpoint solutions just to protect your internal environment. But now, as we all know, for the past few years, more organizations are now adapting onto the cloud-based architecture. Most of the applications are becoming SaaS-based applications, or else most of their applications either will be like, let's say, legacy application already been pushed onto the Azure, or maybe for another cloud environment. And then few of the customers we are still having with a hybrid mode, their legacy application, they really wanted to keep it on-prem, or due to legal reasons, they will be keeping those applications on-prem. Now, that being said, now what is SaaS is all about, in this conceptual method, we are expecting most of the security solution. Now, there's no particular order on this one. There's nothing order like that. But just to give a concept about that one, the components will be, you will be having a cloud hosted security model, and then you will be having a firewall as a service model. And then we have secure web gateway, just inspecting all your traffics as well, application level. And then you have a CASB service. Now, CASB service, it's another method of like scanning your cloud-based applications. Now, what will happen is when all these components come into the picture, and think about like your endpoint devices, regardless of their location, whether they are, let's say, in office, home, or maybe on the road, even not only the mobile devices, laptops, desktop, regardless of the location, whenever they are accessing the applications, the security policies that we apply, we don't want those security policies only to be applied and function when those users are in the office. So we really want these security policies to travel with the user. Now, when I use that word travel with security travel with the user, I just actually stole that concept from another very good company that who gave this solution initially, Zscaler. Zscaler is a company like that. They gave the concept idea about security should be travel with the user rather than the security should be applied when the user is inside the office. So that concept now being introduced as a SaaS in this model. So as you can see, all these components playing a major role when the applications being actually moved on to the cloud, or whether the applications on-prem, regardless of that one. Wherever the user is accessing, then the user's sessions will be, let's say, monitored, and their endpoint devices will be monitored, and then will be given the access. I'll go further a little bit about that access model, but this is the conceptual idea. Now, this is the legacy issue, legacy environment, as I said, because when you have like corporate network, remote workers, remote networks, as well as you can see, when you have corporate security stack, this will not going to work, because this is only going to protect your on-prem environment. And then the users has to make a VPN all the way to access those applications, whether it's in on-prem or even in the cloud. So what will happen is this security stack, it's going to be burned out, and then the corporations have to spend a lot of money on that one, upgrading that one. So it doesn't going to cut in. And the other challenge is for some organizations, These remote workers, when they make the VPN connection, they get the access to all the corporate application within the environment plus networks, which we don't want to do. Sometimes you only want to do, maybe let's say example, let's say play a role. Let's say I'm actually a finance person, and then I work for a company called Contoso, and I'm traveling. At that time, I really wanted to access to the corporate network environment and access one of our, let's say, finance application, only that application. And but what we when we make a VPN connection, we actually get exposed to the entire network and maybe the application stack, which is again, if the endpoint device is compromised, it's a high security risk. So what from a security point of view, we would really like to see is no, when this particular user login, I only want that person, he or she want to be access only that particular application. But again, when they're trying to access that application, I want to make sure this person is authorized person, he or she said who they are. I want to get it verified. I want this particular endpoint device as also company approved device, and then its health is in an optimum situation. If not, I will try to avoid giving him the access. That's the concept where we really wanted to travel. So at the moment with current environment solutions, we won't be able to do that one. And then plus, as you can see, the traffic going from these devices directly to the SaaS services in cloud, there's no protection at the moment, traffic handling. You can actually do that one going through VPN to the security stack and then going up and down, but then it's a burden for your security stack. So how Microsoft SSE is going to handle this solution? Now, Microsoft conceptually had a model. All their security solutions are centric around identity. So identity is the key thing what they really focus about. Around that one, all the security solutions being built up. So same solution goes on in this SaaS solution as well. So as you can see, how we try to verify is, one thing is any user, any device. We don't mind conceptually from any location as well. So we will be looking at identities, endpoints, and the remote networks. From all these concepts, we will be looking at that one. Now, from any user, any device, when they're trying to log in, we scan on these conceptually. Identities, we look at the identity, endpoint, and remote networks. Now, how we can actually verify that one? What we are trying to use is a concept called conditional access policies. Now, identities, it's always Entra ID. Microsoft, like, of course, it's Azure AD. Now we call it as Entra ID. Now, endpoints, Microsoft has their own EDR solution, of course, but that doesn't mean every customer will follow that rule. They might have different endpoint EDR solution. Doesn't matter in that case, as long as it can be integrated into the Entra ID ecosystem. And then the remote networks, as long as these are trusted one where we can configure on our portal. I'll demo that one later. So what will happen is we will be providing conditional access policies. We are telling in the conditional access policies, if that particular user or particular user group, we can say approved one. And if they're connecting from approved device, so we will have those devices already registered into the Entra ID. And then that also not enough. We can even say further going on, like a continuous access evaluation, whether these endpoint devices are healthy or not. Verify that one for me. So we can go ahead further with the policies and check the health policies. And then the remote networks, are they connecting from the trusted area or non-trusted area? So based on these conditions, I can actually give the access to those particular resources. When I do that one, under the Microsoft solution of SaaS solution, you can see there's a concept called dedicated tunnels. What really happened is in this time, Microsoft is installing an agent onto those devices, basically mobile and then laptops or desktops. At the moment, Mac OS and then the Android, these are preview, and then for the both mobile and the Android. But in the Windows, our agent is like now it's GA, general access available. So what will happen is this particular agent will be communicating and then verifying those policies are, let's say, compatible or not, whether according to the policies, if this machine is allowed or not. Based on that, when I say that one, you can see it's always going to the Entra ID, verify that one, go to the conditional access policies, verify, and after that only, the traffic will be traveling through Microsoft Global Network. Now, this is the key. Now, if you try to do this one in the other way around from your on-prem network, which I show you previously, all the traffic has to come from any location to your network environment or for your device. And that has a major flow based on where that person, let's say the latency will be a bigger impact for you to access for that one. Now, the advantage on the Microsoft Global Private Wide Area Network, just like any major, let's say the public cloud vendor, they have the capacity. So they have many endpoints globally to connect. So whenever this connection is establishing, it will try to identify the nearest end location for the Microsoft private network. And then from there, the traffic will be traveling through their private network, not the public network, private. So that's the key advantage in this situation. And then based on that particular traffic type, when I say this dedicated, you can see the word here mentioned, dedicated tunnels, not only single tunnel, multiple tunnels will be established. So you can see it will be ending over there with based on particular traffic. Now, if you are coming from with a better understanding of Zscaler have the same concept. They have an agent onto the laptops or maybe the end device. Any traffic which will be going to those sections will be traveling to the Zscaler environment. So Zscaler, think about like a cloud-based firewall with all the components. They scan their traffic, and then based on the policies that you have configured, then it will be allowed you to access the particular resources. Everything will be going to the cloud. Same thing Microsoft doing over here. So the better advantage for Microsoft because of their large network rather than the Zscaler. But there are customers who already implemented Zscaler. So can they adapt this one? Will be there any advantage? Yes. At the moment, Microsoft is like try to be working together with them as well. So if you have Zscaler solution, this will work side to side as well. Now, taking this one a little bit further now in my conversation, I'll try to run some of the slide decks quickly because some of them I already covered. So we talk about everything on Microsoft Identity Centric, which I mentioned, Entra ID. And then feel free to ask any question whenever you feel. Stop me and ask the questions. Now, there are two areas we are trying to cover. One is Microsoft Entra Internet Access, SaaS-based application on outside world. And the other one is Microsoft Entra Private Access in the concept of ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access. Remember, I mentioned there are some applications customers still maintain on-prem. So we want to make sure those also covered because we can't go and say, oh, we will only cover the SaaS-based applications on the cloud and the internet only. So this solution is covering both scenarios. Excuse me. And your remote networks, even though it's not highlighted in this diagram, you can actually connect them onto the Microsoft SD-WAN concept. So in that case, it's like a large Microsoft MPLS network for your private one in that case. So all those traffic will be heading out to the Microsoft Global Network in order to be scanned. But when I say scan everything, that is your call. You configure the policies.
Question.
Yeah.
So are we now being decentralized versus days of old? You'd always have certain regions, areas. You had your tenant. So therefore, you normally went to that. And then if you wanted to go globally, you have to get other pieces to actually make it work. Whereas now we're decentralized. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're still getting this.
On the DDoS part, not sure. But from the other hand, regardless of the location, let's say we set it up on this one on New Zealand, but we will be on USA, UK, doesn't matter. From those endpoints, when you're connecting, remember like we are connecting to your Entra ID tenant, regardless. So it's in the Microsoft backend network. So it doesn't matter. So regardless of that one, it will be connecting. And then all your policies which have been defined will be read and processed. That's what that agent that I mentioned about supposed to do. That agent supposed to do and understand what is the IP is connecting from, and then try to understand the nearest edge location for Microsoft. Connect over there, and after that, it will be identify what is this machine ID, and then the use ID go to the particular tenant, and then process the policies.
And that in part with Intune because it's device certified. So
yes, device validation as well.
Therefore, you've got two parts of the puzzle already.
It will be also going a little bit more as well. because like we will go all the way back over here, all these solution components, like it will also try to look at it your web application where you will be accessing, because in future you will be finding out, not in the future, even right now, the biggest challenge for internet system administrators are what are the application my team is using when they are outside the network or inside the network. So we call the concept shadow IT. Sometimes they have no clear idea what are the real application they are accessing. So there are certain application we don't approve, but the end users are using that one. So the CASP will be a really good and advantage. CASP will also give you an insight what are the web application they have been using. And then I can take it further, say, there's a word I use on the continuous evaluation. I can even further set up policies saying, if certain these web application being used, drop them out. And then that policies also will be evaluated.
This is still being tested, right?
No, the what we call the internet access, this concept is already GA. But as I'm talking now, to my knowledge, private access, we still have a kind of like a private preview program going on, to my understanding. So I might be wrong because these things are keep on evaluating, keep on improving very quickly. At the moment, this is GA, this is private preview going on.
This is available for the customers, right?
Yeah. That's why I said GA.
If I talk about the SSA solution, so is there any specific policies for the conditional access one, or existing policies will work?
No, good question. I was about to come to that one. There are policies, I mean, existing conditional access policies, we can select them. Let me see if I can quickly jump into that demo. Sorry?
It's templated.
Kind of like, that's a good question also. Like we have certain templates as well, but not to the optimal level. So if I go to conditional access.
Just finally removed my classic roles as well. I didn't realize I still had them, but I got an email 2 days ago. It's like, yes.
Saying you have to remove them out. And then same with the MFA as well. So if I go to conditional access policies, and then if I look at this one, I just created one quickly. So basically, we have specific users. We can go ahead and specific users we can select, and then the target sources. Now, this target sources is like really interesting. Now you can see global secure access. Even though this is says preview, right now we have 365 traffic and internet traffic already been allowed. But as you can see, private traffic is not there. So that's why I said it's a private preview program. Only selected invited customers can get that one. Right now, this is can be go on a GA mode. Now this is like specifically the tunnel. We are saying, okay, this particular traffic, go ahead and monitor in this specific scenario. Now what I really want to highlight after that, then this is a generic part, network location. You can select whether I want to allow or like disable all the network and then exclude particular trusted network. You have to define the trusted network. What are the trusted network in your environment? And then the condition. So you can, now these are the other conditions. Conditions are really interesting. You can see user risk, signing risk, insider. So these are like continuously will be evaluated once based on your users. If the machine is compromised, even though this user is allowed to access a particular application, if the machine is compromised or if the user identity got compromised, if the Entra ID detected, oh, this user account has been tried to be accessed from, let's say, globally some other location, which is suspicious within few minutes time, or like continuous access has been tried within, let's say, 1 minute, like 5, 10 or 60 minutes, 60 attempts has been done. Then Entra ID will be categorized, this identity is risky. So as soon as done, even though this user has been allowed access, because of this risk, if I configured like that, because the risk has been tagged by Entra ID saying this user account is risk, that particular user will be not allowed to access that applications, or even the session will be, let's say, the dropped out in that situation. So these are really interesting ones. Like continuously, it will be keep on evaluating your conditions if you configure.
Click on network once again.
This one.
Yeah.
Yep. So here you can see at the moment, like this part, you can configure. This is the most flexible rule, or any network location, then all the trusted and location, compliant, then the selected networks. So you can say, let's say in this situation, selected networks. Here you can see I can define, if it's a multinational organization, I can define what are the networks by location wise, go on like that. So that's one thing. So normally either I can say any location disable but exclude certain location. I would prefer to go on this one, disable everything, but this is a very strict situation. Only selected networks, all the others disable. So this policy is a little bit of risky. You have to read it very carefully to understand how it really function. So that's one. Coming back after that, you can either grant access or block access, or maybe we don't go on a block really. We try to go on a grant access but verify the user. Take it a little bit further. Now you can see on the bottom, for multiple require all the selected controls to be applied or selected once. But coming back, this is the interesting part. Sometimes if you really want, you can go ahead even the session level. I can do the controlling part as well. Now this is where the CASB come into the picture. CASB will be monitoring the sessions, and then based on the session also I can configure how this particular session need to be maintained. But this is coming back onto the CA policy. Now I'll be running quickly on respect to the time, but let's go and look at it how this all the magic really happening. Basically, it's a component called in the identity pane. You will be having a section called Global Secure Access. So GSA. Sorry about that. Abbreviations always keep on confusing me time to time. Okay, so we have the dashboard. If it really works properly, you will be able to see all the bin sessions being established. What are the suspectable ones? And then because we have web category filtering, I'll come to that one. If there are any particular traffic will be hitted to those web rules against that one, we'll be able to see the web category filtering. And then where the users top destinations. Now, so basically I can go through all one by one, but it will take time. But you can see a couple of things. I'll go on one more important one for you all. This particular one, cross-tenant access. Now, for certain organizations, they have a requirement. They allow external, let's say the consulting company, let's say in my case, Datacom. I go for another company to work for help to them. And then because it's a temporary work, they have asked me to use my own identity. So they allow me as a guest. Now, while I'm working on that environment, think about I'm the bad actor guy. I really see some important documents and then I really want to copy that one and email to my tenant in that case, or upload it to my SharePoint tenant. Now, yeah, so these things can happen practically. So in this situation, we can go ahead and say cross-tenant access we want to block. So we can allow, say this is the only allowed tenant and the other tenants, I can give a list and say block. This particular option being there on Entra ID previously, but then the configuration has been pushed always to the Microsoft Edge browser. And then, I have to configure them on the network firewall devices. Little bit of a cumbersome situation. So what happened is now, we can do that one in the global access. I'll show the location. We can configure like that. So even though now this, let's say the guest identities come to my network, they can work on my environment, but they won't be able to send those data to outside particular tenant. Now, it's not the most comprehensive solution, but to a certain extent. There are other ways we can prevent, like using Microsoft Purview by looking at the tags, but this is another option available.
That license granularity of that between Entra 1, Entra 2?
At the moment, like some of these solutions, E3 is possible, but as usual, for Microsoft way, E5. E5 is the best way to get everything.
It's like, yeah, you know how you have intro steps?
Yeah. So we have now, that's why I said, I try to put it simple way for, I can go ahead on over here, I can show like that. So Entra ID also we have the P2, P1, but I always try to go with the conversation. Do you have E3? E3, P1 is already there, no issues. If you have E5, you have the best of the world, everything. So then we go ahead with that one. Now, that being said, now that is about, where was I? Yeah, so to configure this one, there are a couple of things like traffic forwarding. Now, right now in my tenant, actually private access profile being disabled because this is also Microsoft, one of the demo tenant I'm using. Now you can see like the profiles we have to activate. So we have the Microsoft external traffic profile, Microsoft traffic profile for M365, private access, and then the internet access profiles. When we enable these profiles, you can see some of these conditional access policies. Traffic policies will be automatically getting enabled, and then you can actually apply or link the additional conditional access policies we want. Now, at the moment, I have not configured anything, only just enable that one only. Otherwise, you will be able to see use and groups whom I have assigned that one. Because I had an issue on the endpoint client to configure that one. I tried to create a VM on the Azure, but that didn't work it out. Now, what will happen is after that, once you configure, you have to download the particular client. So this client can be, of course, distribute using Microsoft. No. I forgot the name for the endpoint device. Intune. Yeah, I got to forget that. Intune. And then if any legacy customer, like they want to use SCCM or any third-party application, doesn't matter. You just get the MSI file, you push it. Now you can see at the moment, these two, macOS and iOS preview, this also used to be preview, but you can see, like as I said, things are keep on changing very quickly on this area. Now Android is given. So Apple users, you have to wait. So that's been said, that's the client part. And then you can define the remote networks. What are the remote networks like in your environment? And then we have the connectors. Now, that being said, let me go on to that policies part. One more thing on session management. Remember, I mentioned about the tenant restriction. This is where you can define the tenant restriction. You can enable that one and configure the tenant restrictions. And here we have the adaptive access. So you can enable the conditional access signaling to be integrated. And then the cool thing is like, now one more thing I want to highlight, which I will not be able to demo, unfortunately, because of when the client is installed to your machine, when it make, let's say, the established sessions, what will happen is initially you will be see your private IP or the public internet IP. After that, once it hit it to the Microsoft global network, they have their own private IP address. Sorry, let's say public IP address, but we call the magic IP because they are ending with 6 range, 6.6.0 range. So now we have another challenge. Then what about when I'm looking at the logs, how can I know where the session has been established, where the let's say the end IP ended? How can I see that one? So Microsoft still try to do a cool thing on that one. Even though it reach out to their global network, they still try to reverse that one. And when it comes to the login, in the logs, not only here, even in the Entra ID logs, you will be able to see from where the user login, what is his public IP address, and then where the destination IP address. They try to reverse that information and show it to you, which is really useful when a security person, he want to say end to end. What is the source, what's the destination, public IP addresses. Now, I'll jump into the slide deck because these configurations will go in depth, but just to quickly highlight, we have the web content filtering policies also there. This is where I can configure which website they can access or block. Now, slowly, as I said, remember that first slide deck I mentioned about that SaaS concept. So here we have a web configuration policies. I can define these restriction policies, define which website, and these policies can be applied to the groups. Not for every user, particular users, I want to block them these particular, let's say the website, blah, blah, blah. I can configure like that policies.
We can do the website filtering from here.
We can do this one from over here. We create a policies. Now, this is one policy at the moment you can see. It's a sample one. And I can define in there the rules. What are the ones that I really wanted to block or allow? Okay. And then the web category wise, or maybe like you can see the search category that how Microsoft has already done at the moment. So select them, create a policy. And then when you're configuring that one, select the particular user group and say, hey, for this particular web policy also need to be applied for this particular group. Within the conditional access policy, I can push up to that level.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Wow. Okay. Then I went through the demo just to highlight. So this is the advantage as I highlight for the Microsoft because they are vast network. So the end users, it doesn't matter where they are located, they can connect from any of these endpoints. That's the unique advantage. And then Microsoft try to work together with the other vendors So we don't want to go and say, oh, you don't have to have the endpoint solution, EDR, remove that one. No, nothing like that. We have tried to work together. Okay, so being said that one, now this concept I already discussed, so I'm trying to go ahead and then I'll try to bring some interesting one. This is the one that I really wanted to highlight because this is the question that we got within the private preview from the customers. So I really wanted to look at the source IP address restoration because when the traffic go through the Microsoft Edge, they're trying to map a different IP address. But I want to see the end-to-end what's happened. So now Microsoft said, don't worry, when you go onto the logs, you will be able to see we are going to do the reverse part. And then the source IP address somewhere over here, we will be able to show that one. Because when it comes to integration of the logs, I want to see everything properly. Now, that being said, let me see. Microsoft private access. Actually, I try to keep it with a less discussion. The whole idea behind that one, what Microsoft want to do is, end of the day, as I said, even for your private application, also we want the same client without giving additional client. We'll be having the same policies, verify, and then through the global network, again, we will be allowing you to go ahead and access your corporate network. Now, the cool thing on that one is at that time, Microsoft will be able, because of your conditional access policies, we can go on to more granular level of filtering and then say whether you want to access a file share or maybe what particular application or any particular device, we can go to granular level. That's a very cool thing rather than giving access to the entire network within your on-premise environment. Now, remember, this one is still going on, kind of like a preview and then the public preview one. And there are a couple of things Microsoft also try to do additionally. You can see this, these things, intelligent local access, and then the TLS termination and inspection traffic will be coming on. And then the web application firewall also will be coming soon for those private access one. Now, that being said, as I said, like, some of these concepts are coming soon once. That's why I said private preview for the private access part. And these are the scenarios, some of the customers, what they really want to do. I'll give a few seconds just to go have a look at it. Because nowadays, like because applications are more and more web-based, one of the questions that I also wanted to put back to you all, think about if the applications are all of them are web-based, and then one thing I didn't see Microsoft at the moment address, but hopefully very soon. What if, example, let's say, what if you got a link from some party, and then you want to click that link, but you still have a doubt whether that link is a valid one or not. At the moment in Office 365, of course, there's a solution to validate those links. Being said that one, let's say you got a link somehow in another method, you want to check that link, click it, but you're afraid if you do that one, machine will be compromised. So something I like to see Microsoft will introduce very soon. For that particular link to be open, you will be getting an isolated web session. So think about like it's a very private one. Whatever the link you open, that particular session is a private one. It has no impact to your machine. And then it's a self, let's say, detonated one. After that, it's destroyed. That's something I really like Microsoft will introduce very soon, because at the moment, one particular company is offering that one. In isolated environment, you can kind of like I forgot that particular word for that one, but isolated environment, each session. So after that one, each session is destroyed, it will never interact with your private machines. So it's a really cool idea, because for the security concern situation, that's really good. So being said that one, now before I finish, these are the links. Now, as I said, some of them are private access, and then some of them are private access preview. So Microsoft, these web links will take you to a group where you can contribute. And then Microsoft will be having sessions with you all through the PM, product managers. So they will be taking your feedback. And then if you're really interested to test this one within your environment, by all means, you can take the conversation with Microsoft. They evaluate whether your environment is ideal for them. If that's the case, then you will be sign up. Then you will have a private preview access. Cool. Unfortunately, time is the biggest challenge. So I'll conclude, but these slide decks anyway are going to be shared, so you can have access, and then feel free to reach me out if there's any questions. Thank you, Tim.
Awesome.
George gets set up. If you wanted to have some more food and drink or go to the restroom, please feel free. Just a minute to make sure you can get it in there.
Read all that info.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, which
Yeah.
channel?
Not-
See you.
Auckland Asian Meetup on YouTube, and it's the first one. Yeah.
The demo is more about back then. This music.
I stored in the mic.
No, I've got.
Hence your access there.
Hey, for you.
Someone that hacked it as well.
Yeah, because see, yeah, the information. Oh, yes. ID. The person ID.
Yeah, the producer.
Enter ID. Enter ID. Listed EDR solution.
Yeah.
EDR solution. Remember, like EDR solution
Management is very
can install onto the machine.
product management. These are the product management.
EDR solution dashboard say the health of the other than me. I see some yes. Which one agent only will be sending actually information about the ID. Or like EDR integration. So it just what we call the ID. EDR. Hey, what's the on that? It's healthy. That you look at
Not hard.
policy. What the 3-year policy? If this machine is doing, what do you you have different solutions, all good. But if you don't have a call,
Hi there, everybody. While you get your drinks and your food, I'll just start with the introductions. I'm George Stevens. And I used to be a cloud solutions architect. I'm now a technical specialist, and my focus is data and AI. Thank you. For my sins in my past life, I used to be a teacher. So if I go too deep, just call it out and let's just stop then, right? Let's pull it back up again.
Smoked 30 cigarettes today.
No, I did not. I did not. So, yep. Disclaimer or clickbait. So we'll be covering Fabric, all right? We won't necessarily be diving into deep models. I am not a data scientist. I do dabble in it, but you guys must probably know much more about that than me at this point in time, right? So here we go.
Coming to our Power BI meetup tonight.
Unfortunately not.
Session.
But you have DSR there, which knows everything. So that's all good. So yeah. All good. Fantastic. So here we go. Thank you for having me, everybody. Right. The main constraint that we found in Microsoft, we've been hearing from multiple customers and multiple years, is that customers struggle, one, to get data, and then once they get the data, how to use that data and integrate it into various different platforms. You get a SAP, you get an Oracle, you get a SQL Server, you get a Lakehouse, you get anything in that regard. So how do you combine all of that together in that regard? And if you're the CIO, you want to be the Chief Information Officer, not the Chief Integration Officer. Right. So that's some of the challenges we've been found. So hence the creation of Fabric. So Fabric was created from the ground up to enable you to start utilizing your data more efficiently in this regard. And as you can see, as everything else in Microsoft, we sprinkle Copilot on top of that. Right, so Copilot runs, for those of you who don't know that haven't played with it, Copilot runs on the OpenAI models at the back end, and then does some magic for us in this regard. This will be integrated more and more into various, and if not all, the products in Microsoft. So Fabric is just one of the starting points that they started utilizing this in this regard. So as you can see there, the productivity, the main goal is to accelerate productivity for everybody in this regard. AI was first in mind, along with the design of data mesh and everything in that regard around Fabric. So there's various components that come into play with Fabric. And the idea is to make generative AI and AI democratized. Because one of the other problems we're seeing is there's a skill shortage in that regard to people having the capability to do decent computer science. If I can find the proper button, there we go. So the unified platform consists out of various personas. Just for those to drill on that a little bit, is anybody else who is not familiar with Fabric? Let's cut it out in that regard. Yes, no. Okay, good. So we have various personas in Fabric. Data Factory, where you would do all your ingestion, ETL, ELT. All right. We have the Synapse Data Engineering, where you can do obviously your curation, fixing. Data engineers work in that environment usually. You have your data science, right? Data science is just like the experiment with Spark clusters and Data Wrangler and everything that's available in that regard. And then you have this warehouse. The warehouse is available for you to have your curated data in, typically your bronze, silver, gold, right? You would typically make your warehouse the gold layer of your medallion architecture. And there's also real-time analytics in there, which is pretty cool. Power BI, obviously, to visualize everything, and Data Activate at the end of that. All of that runs on top of one lake, which is your central point for all of your data in that regard, and everything goes into one lake. Everything lives in one lake. The nice thing, and I suppose the crazy thing about one lake as well, is that it doesn't only need to be Microsoft. You can connect to AWS, Google, Snowflake, all other platforms to be able to pull data in or have access to that data. So when I say pull in or have access, with a shortcut, you can effectively link to the data. Same as your desktop. You don't move the file to the desktop. You just create a shortcut on the desktop, and that effectively points to where the data resides. So you just point to where the data resides. Let's call it the S3 bucket, right? You go to that blob, you access the data in AWS. It doesn't need to move into Azure for you to be able to utilize it. Yep. Say again, sorry. Purview. Yep, fantastic. Thank you for bringing that up. So Purview is our data catalog that's also built into Fabric. Data catalogs, for you that don't know, is where's your data. It gathers metadata for us in this regard so that you know where the data is. First place to go to search for data, find where the data is, what to do and how to do it. Along with that, there's lineage that's built in that regard, saying I hopped from A to B to C to D to E to F to be able to understand what the process was that the data went through before it was utilized in that regard. Thank you. Righto. Right, and disclaimer, there are some sizzle visuals in there, and it's purely for me not to be able to speak over it, and one for the fear of missing out and forgetting things. Right, so here comes the first one.
Next generation AI in Microsoft Fabric empowers you to unlock the full potential of your data. With Copilot integrated into every data experience, Microsoft Fabric lets you use natural language to bring your data to life. From integrating data to writing code to finding insights and creating reports, new transformative AI experiences work alongside you every step of the way, so you can stay focused on getting value from your data. Copilot helps turn your words into data flows and data pipelines, so you can intelligently integrate data from anywhere. When writing code, Copilot automatically suggests code and entire functions in real time, and Copilot can guide you to create machine learning models to unlock insights in your data. Just by chatting with Copilot, you can visually explore your data to create stunning reports, discover insights, and summarize your data into easy-to-understand text narratives for sharing. With Copilot, you can turn insight into action with triggers that monitor your data and notify users. You can even create your own custom natural language experiences that combine Azure OpenAI models and your organization's data, and easily publish your creations as plugins. And with your data in Fabric, Copilot provides insights and answers everywhere work gets done. Most importantly, Microsoft Cloud runs on trust, which means your data always remains your data. Bring your data into the era of AI with Microsoft Fabric.
So just to emphasize the last bit of that as well is that your data remains your data. We do not use any of your data to train any of the large language models. We do not use that in any way. And there are guarantees in that regard to be able to do so. There are various strict measures as well for Copilot to protect that as well. All right, so I can hear the thoughts rumbling off here, but what about the models? I'm a data scientist. I want to create my own model. How am I going to do this? Right, so we'll get there. Just give me a moment. We're going through the process of how to basically get to the point you have your data that you can start building a model from. So the first point to start usually is Data Factory. Anybody familiar with Azure Data Factory? ADF, 1, 2, couple. So it's our Swiss Army, ADF is our Swiss Army knife to be able to connect to data sources, pull data, and then effectively use that curate, do various pipelines, flows, anything in that regard to grab your data and transform your data, right? So that's the main source of it. That's been pulled into Azure Fabric as well. So we have our own mechanism of using pipelines to pull data. It's effectively exactly the same as ADF in this regard. So ADF was one of the first, or Data Factory, sorry, was one of the first Copilots that was released. Now, for most people, that's very boring. For me, being an old data engineer, old in both ways, that's for me the most exciting bit of it, because that's the boring bits of it, but that's the most tedious work, in my opinion, of data. All right, so for me, that was great and fantastic. So moving on to the next slide. If you can see in the slide, yeah, you can see we can now utilize the use of, just get the mouse going.
Let's make a small observation.
Yep.
Notice in the previous slide, you've got AI is calling Copilot.
Yep, so there's AI, the general broad term of AI, we group it all under, and then I think that entails Copilot as well. So we've got,
Basically all the steps. So
yes, we can use Copilot in all the steps, but we can also use AI models to your choosing a little bit later on. You'll see that you can use in anything and everything you can do. Yep, that's good. Thank you. So, all right. So if you can see here, we are using OpenAI to do some of the curation for us. All right. So there's just a slide. There's another video coming. So, yep, just in case I miss. And you can see we've used some natural language to do that, because we all can hopefully talk. Sometimes better the one day than the other. For me, speaking to 3 languages, sometimes it gets hard. But yes, most of the people here would understand what I'm saying. Right, so as you can see, you can describe what you want. You don't need to code it anymore. You've got the capability of asking Copilot to do that for you. It will assist you to do so. All right, you can tap into Azure OpenAI of generative languages, generative models that can assist you in that regard. Right, and you can also ask Copilot to use multiple and start prompting and doing various exploration tasks in this regard. All right, so that's, to me, that's pretty cool. Because if I am a grad, for instance, or a new starter at a company, and I go into the company, it's a bit intimidating. Oh, go and fix that pipeline. Pipeline? Where's the wrenches, right? Copilot can be your tools to think about it. Right. Where did my mouse go?
Let's take a look at how we're integrating Copilot into Data Factory to bring the power of generative AI to data preparation. Here I have some data for electric bike rentals from Contoso Outdoors, and I need to transform and enrich for my analysis. Of course, I could do this manually through the Power Query user experience, but let's use Copilot to get my work done even faster. In my bike trips table, I have start and end dates for each trip. Let's begin by asking Copilot to add a new column for trip duration in minutes. And just like that, Copilot has added a step with the appropriate formula calculating the duration of each trip. If I want, I can rename the column just by asking as well. Now let's have Copilot add another column that groups the trip durations into categories. And this is where we see some of Copilot's real-world intelligence kick in. Copilot knew that a short bike rental is just a couple of minutes and also set up categories for medium and long trips. But Copilot can do even more. We have the temperature when each trip took place, but it's in Fahrenheit. Let's have Copilot convert it to Celsius. And immediately, Copilot added the formula to do the conversion. I can even ask something like, filter out the trips on rainy days. And Copilot is smart enough to know to create a filter to only keep days with 0 precipitation. I'm going to undo that step, and now I want to use Copilot to merge a few queries. Let's switch over to the diagram view so we can see what's going on. Now I'm going to ask Copilot to create a new query that merges the trips table with the table containing our membership data. Copilot figures out that the join can be done on the member ID column. And now I can select the columns I want to include about our members alongside the trip data. And I can rename the table, Trips with Member Info. And finally, for one last step, let's create a new query that gives me statistics for each of the bikes from the trips table. Copilot does a group by for each of the bike IDs and calculates the number of trips, average and total duration of trips, and the number of unique members who rented a bike. Being able to turn natural language to full data preparation and enrichment processes with Copilot is a game changer for data productivity.
So that was a bit of a sizzle video. Yes, I agree. But that process takes 15 minutes to do, all right? Doesn't take you 15 hours to do now. It used to take me 15 hours, but yeah, I was a bit slow, all right? So it just makes it easier, makes us more productive. Yep.
As per usual, it's great that they had all the prompts. But having the creative brain to actually come up with those questions.
Yep.
Is where it's yourself and other guys come into it.
Yep. And that's very true in this regard. I mean, prompt engineering, in my opinion, is going to become the next version of code. So we're going to have to be able to adjust our prompts, think how we think, add context to our prompts. And at the end, we can do a bit of a demo, and I can show you that if you just say, do this, it's not going to understand. You need to provide the appropriate context, because otherwise it won't know. It being the model, sorry. So I shouldn't be saying it, it's being recorded as a dear model, because it might become the supervisor of me one day. I don't know. So yes, just a silly joke, but yes, yeah.
So is this Copilot connected to the internet, and it can maybe make it, let me make an example. Like if I send a link to the Copilot and please follow this link and do the instruction, do things like in the links and follow the links to do other things.
Yep. So in these Copilots, no, that's not available. You can provide it with a document. It will look at the document, but it won't necessarily go out. But the bigger part of that is you can create a Copilot that can go to a website and do a query on that website. So I'm going to call Elmo now, but I'll say as well, Elmo, sorry, enough, let's move on. You can use Copilot to create that for you, but it can only go X amount of levels deep. So if you have something that's 10 levels deep on the website, Copilot's not going to do that for you. It will only do 2 or 3 levels deep. So, but yes, you can. It will look at the document that you provide to it, yes, rather than going out, because that can become problematic, right? So you need to provide it the context or the data to look at. Right, so the next part that we will look at is the data engineering and the data science, and this is where the interesting bits comes in, if that is what one is interested in for the data science components about all of this. All right, so it's designed to do an end-to-end for everybody, to help you from Fabric into engineering, into data science, and then use notebooks and SQL and everything in that regard to be able to do that. Right. Right, so the possibility to accelerate everybody in this regard is effectively endless, right? So you can transform the data, you can prep the data, you can create a model, and you can basically build the model and train the model all from a lakehouse. So gone are the days that we now need to have everything into a warehouse or a server. We can all do that from a lakehouse in a lakehouse environment. Yep. So we can use Copilot to understand, analyze our data. As it says there, you can create and configure the ML models. You can write code. Who has been using Copilot or GitHub Copilot? Anybody? Yep. Effectively the same thing, right? So yes, so GitHub Copilot had a month to have effectively 1 million users online, something that registered for it. So it's very quickly in that regard. So it's one of the biggest uptakes in IT ever since the invention of sliced bread. Right.
Let's take a look at how we're integrating Copilot for data science. Here I am in a notebook with some electric bike rental data from Contoso Outdoors. I've loaded some data frames, and I could start writing code manually, but let's see how Copilot can help. Let's open up the Copilot task pane. I'm going to collapse this pane so we can see more of the notebook. Let's get started. Right away, I have some suggested prompts to help me understand my data and how to analyze it. Let's ask to see some suggestions of how to visualize things. I get a list of options, and I can ask Copilot to help with any of these. First, I just want to get a basic column chart of trips by station. All I need to do is ask Copilot for help. I can enter my prompt, and Copilot looks at my data and generates the code for me. This lets even someone who's just getting started with Python to get up and running quickly. Now that I have the code, I can insert it into the notebook and run it. Right away, I can see the San Francisco Caltrain station has the most trips starting from it. That's interesting, but now let's ask to get a heat map of trip duration between start and end stations. Again, Copilot is going to take my prompt and generate the code for me. Let's insert it into the notebook and run it. And now I have an interesting heat map of the trips. There are a few outliers, which we can zoom in on. And it looks like San Jose State University has more long trips starting there than compared to the average. And as you can see, Copilot is doing a great job of just letting me ask questions and taking care of providing me the code so I can just play with my data. Now, asking questions from the task pane is okay, but I'd rather just work directly in the notebook. Fortunately, I can use Copilot in a notebook cell just by typing %% code. Let's ask for help creating a forecast for next month using the Profit Forecasting library. Copilot has generated the code. And you can see this takes quite a bit of know-how to be able to use the library. But Copilot is taking care of figuring out how to use it with my data. Now we can run the code. And just like that, we have our forecast. Let's look at the shape of the data by asking Copilot for some visualizations of the output. And now we have a line chart of our new forecast. I could keep iterating and playing, which is really fun using Copilot. But let's finish off by writing the results back to my lakehouse. Copilot is going to truly democratize the ability to work with data in advanced ways. And as you can see, Copilot can give everyone a bit of data science superpowers with Microsoft Fabric.
Yes, my video. Apologies. This is the data science one.
Much data it can handle actually.
So it can handle the amount of data that it can see. If Copilot's on the right-hand side, can handle the amount that's on the left. So there's no limit to what the Copilot will handle for you in this regard.
The traditional ETL tools which we had earlier, like Avinish or Informatica maybe, they used to handle millions of transaction records of bank data. So that can also be easily processed using Microsoft Fabric.
Yep. So you would typically use either the data factory, or you could use a notebook to do the transformation for you.
So I can do the exact same thing on that data which you just showed in the demo. So using the prompts, I can go and analyze all those million records and it will be able to show me.
Yep. So what it will do is typically what it will do is it'll do a percentile slice. All right. So Copilot will not plug in, for lack of a better word, everything into Copilot. It will look at some of the data, look at the data frame, look at the schema, determine what's there. All right. Then grab that, do a bit of analysis. It won't go exhaustively going through all of your 10 or 15 or 100 million rows. It will do 30,000, use that, and then effectively create the code to be able to do that or do the transformations for you if you choose to do so. So it's not exhaustively consuming everything and spitting it out again. It's just looking at it. It's a tool.
Okay.
So the other thing to remember, please, it's Copilot. It's not autopilot.
Okay.
All right.
You have anything, for automatic report generation as well? Suppose, in a basic data engineering world, you consume the data and generate the business reports or maybe compliance reports as well. So the Copilot will do the same thing as well to generate the reports.
You can ask it to do that. Yes, it will be able to generate a specific report for you, which leads us to the next Copilot. Thank you. I didn't pay him anything.
Yeah, I missed it while I made the copy, but using Copilot to make the notebook as well.
So Copilot is not going to make the notebook for you. You embed the Copilot into the notebook.
Okay.
So the notebook is there.
Regurgitate again. Yeah.
Yeah. So the notebook, you create the notebook, you install, I'll show that in the demo, you install Copilot, and then Copilot effectively provides you the code that you can then copy paste into the notebook. And then that notebook, you run it on the Spark cluster in this regard.
So this takes away basically the data engineering role now. So what's the next?
Not necessarily. It doesn't take away. It just makes your life easier. There's still things. Remember, Copilot is not perfect. The videos you see are perfect, but you'll see when we do the demo, it does make mistakes. And there are still things you understand the context because you've been working as a SME, right? A specialist in your environment, a subject matter expert, right? For a number of years. So if I talk about fact financial, right? Anybody in the banking industry goes, okay, it's a fact table, it's a financial, and then it's going to ask me, is that the transactions or which one is it, right? So you still have that knowledge. This is just there to help you and assist you.
Now, maybe down the line, 2 years.
What? Say again, sorry.
I said not now, it will eat up the jobs, but down the line, 2-3 years.
I personally think it might eat up some jobs. Let's be realistic about it, but it's going to create a bunch of other jobs as well, right? If you take your mobile phone, or you take the ATM, or you take internet banking, right? So let's use the bank. First, you needed to go to the cashier. I want to make a withdrawal. Okay, hello, Mr. Stevens. Do you write the check? Do whatever, right? Then came the ATM. I'll okay, I don't need to go to internally to the cashier anymore. So I just go to the punch my PIN in, get the money out, right? Now ATMs are disappearing because it's all being done via contactless, right? You don't need money anymore unless you in a country that only uses physical currency, right? So, but along those lines, other jobs were created. So I think we should just think differently about it, not necessarily fear it, but yes, there could potentially be, that guy's no longer there. But if you on the trend already, you don't need to be scared of this. That's my opinion. Right, and in case you wondered, just to continue with the slides, we do have a Copilot for Power BI, yes.
Right.
Right, so I am, once again, old data engineer. I'm not a storyteller. I call it touchy-feely. I don't necessarily do well with drawing pictures and doing all those things. It's not my interest. I'm being honest, right? Here comes Copilot to save the day. Hopefully.
Now let's take a look at how we're integrating Copilot into Power BI to help you build reports and discover insights. Let's create a new report on some electric bike rental data from Contoso Outdoors. Now, of course, I could build a report by dragging and dropping fields into the page, but let's see how Copilot can help. I'm going to ask for some suggestions based on my data. And after looking at the data and fields I have in my model, Copilot has given me a few topics I could use to get started. Let's use the trip forecast and optimization prompt so we can see the data we generated from our data science notebook. And just like that, Copilot has picked relevant fields and visualizations from my data to generate a report page for me. We have our forecast for trips broken down by a few interesting fields, and we can slice and dice like any other Power BI report. Best of all, this is a great starting point for editing and refining the report to get just what I want. Let's add the historical trips numbers so we can see them side by side with the forecast. Now let's create another page. I'm going to ask for trip statistics and a summary of station status. And again, Copilot has generated a beautiful report. I can filter and slice and dice to explore the data. And I can see that there's an interesting trend for what hours of the day have the most rentals. There's a spike in the morning and then in the evening during commute times. I wonder how this compares to the length of trips. Let's drag over the average length of trip and add it to the chart. It turns out there's an interesting outlier here. There's a big spike in trip distance at 2 a.m. I assume it's when the bars let out. And if we filter on just trips at that time, we can see there are a few stations close to college campuses that stand out. But let's ask Copilot to double check. We can ask, which are the stations with the highest percentage of long trips? And this time, instead of creating a new page, Copilot has looked at the data in my report and summarized an answer for me. And we can see it does look like there is an overlap with the universities. Okay, there's one last feature I want to show you. Let's make some space on my report page. And now I'm going to insert a new summary visual, where we can ask Copilot to provide a narrative about our data. Let's ask for a few bullet points to summarize station status. Immediately, Copilot looks at our data and is listing insights to help people who read this report see the key facts. All the insights include a citation to show what visual they were drawn from, so you can double-check accuracy. So here we have created a beautiful, insightful report in just a couple of minutes. As you can see, Copilot truly supercharges how you create reports in Power BI.
So just the last bit of it, please remind yourself that the person at the end had to have a look and say, oh, but what is this correlate to maybe bars opening or closing? Copilot didn't know that, right? So once again, Copilot, not autopilot. Yes?
You for having the closed captions on the video, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I struggle to always follow what people say, so it's easier for me to do. So yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next. Don't want to do it again. Sorry. Right. Moving on to the foundation, in my opinion, right, is one lake. So everything you've seen is being pulled out of one lake in this regard, all right? So one lake is Delta Parquet, all right? It runs on Delta, so that's the format that Databricks brought out. What's great about that is that anything that can read and write to Delta Parquet can read and write from and to one lake, all right? So you're not stuck with Fabric. You can still do things in Databricks. You can still do something in other systems, right? So it's an open source format. It's not proprietary, and it's the link to everything, combining all of your data into one single point. Plus, you'll have purview to know and scan what's in the lake for you. All right. Just check the time. Sorry. Yeah, and that makes it available for you as well. The team is working on a unified mechanism to apply security across all of this as well, because Purview will eventually also add or has got the capability to connect into your Microsoft 365 for all the governance around that, with labeling, sensitivity, all of those kind of things, right? So that's being rolled out as we speak in this regard. All right. So that is the main point. You can ingest data into there, and there it basically resides where you can utilize that. The main thing as well is that it stops you from duplicating data, because I've had so many times that I go into a meeting and we've got the same data set, but somebody has just sprinkled a little bit of something else on top, and a little bit else on top, and a little bit else on top. And then we end up having these big arguments about outcomes and data, but it's essentially the same data, right? If it all resides in the same place, there can be no argument anymore. Okay, they can, but yes. So that's just the one lake to rule them all, right? Tying to Lord of the Rings.
Like the name.
As well.
One
Yes.
source of truth.
Yes.
One point, one piece of data.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And that's part of it as well. You can only have one lake per tenant, right? So into the question about the tenancy resides where your intro resides. So if you want data sovereignty, data governance, data residency, they can all be controlled as well. Right, so that's not all been Copilot in this regard, right? So AI, but not really the AI that we want to create. Here comes the human interaction between it all that we can now start using, all right? We have introduced the use of semantic kernel and LangChain so that you can effectively call an external model to do the work for you. All right, so everybody familiar with LangChain, because this next video is basically based on LangChain, or do I need to get a little bit of background about LangChain? So LangChain is effectively a mechanism that you can provide configurations to call any model you would like to use, be it a Llama, be it an OpenAI, be it a Phi, be it your choosing. So you can have your own model as well. As long as you can get to the API, you can effectively use your own model to do the same thing. So if you have previously trained models, you can feed the data into there with LangChain. Yep. So it makes it easy. So this is just a bit of a rundown. We'll go to another video as well, just to show everybody. So what you effectively do is, this walks you through the situation of you're a data engineer, you've got data, you want to add a column, right? How do I clean up that column? That can take days if you don't have help, right? Let's see what we can do to make that easier for everybody.
Let's look how data professionals can start leveraging large language models as part of their everyday work. I'm going to start here in my notebook. I have a data set here containing product data with product descriptions and other relevant information. Using this data that's sitting in my lakehouse, we are going to use Synapse ML and the Fabric built-in endpoint to add a column for product category based on all the information that's already in the table. So here you see our table with data that's far from perfect, like our product specification column, for example. Now we've loaded the data into our data frame, and we can see the columns, schema, and some of the types to get a better sense of our data. Here you can see we are preparing for this call to Azure OpenAI. At the top, you can see we are opening an Azure OpenAI chat session, and I've defined the model I want to use, which in this case is ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo. And then I also want to instantiate a variable with my prompt. We've provided it with simple instructions. Determine the product category using all the information in the dataset. We've also provided it with some examples to help it along. Then we create a large language model chain. We've added LangChain transformers to our Synapse ML Spark library to help you more easily use LangChain functionality directly on Spark with Synapse ML. So as a data engineer, I can now instantiate this transformer, and as we run this, you can see us calling out to Azure OpenAI using the LangChain Synapse ML transformer with the prompt and the instructions. And the result is the new data frame with a column added for the product category. It even applied multiple categories for some products. And we can check these categories against the product to make sure it's accurate. For example, this Flower Power peel and stick border was correctly categorized as home decor. You can see how easy it is for data engineers or data scientists to get started with large language models in Fabric.
So that would have saved me days, if not weeks, of work to do and work through, right? So yeah, it's boring for most. For me, it's extremely exciting. So yeah.
It's awesome.
All right, moving on.
Does it display like Azure Databricks or like something natively using Synapse?
Yep. So we have Spark at the back end. So we have our own Spark engines being spun up to do that. That's serverless as well. So it's not a VM that needs to be stood up. That gets created for you, curated for you, managed, and everything is run in that environment. That is all, to technical detail of that, is it's all part of the Fabric capacity. So it's not something you need to manage. This is a SaaS-like service. So you just say, and I'll show this to you now, if there's a little bit of time left with the demo, you just say, I want to connect to the Spark cluster. It spins up the cluster, creates a cluster for you, and then off you go. Now, if any of you, the question is, has any of you set up Spark clusters in the past? I have. It's not the easiest thing to do. It's quite time consuming and it's quite hard to do properly. All right, so that does it for you. You only pay for what you use, and you don't even pay for what you use because you pay for the capacity that's part of your Fabric. All right, so it's not a fair comparison between Databricks and Synapse, two different mechanisms, two different means of operating, but it's fairly similar in that regard. Does that answer your question, sir? Now, if we have generative AI, right? Not all of us are coders. So this is in preview, but it's a sneak peek as well. Not all of us are coders. Well, let's rephrase. Do all of we in the room crank code?
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes not. What happens if you get a business end user that doesn't really care about code? I want to solve the business problem. All right. So we've developed something that could effectively assist people in that regard as well. So this is pretty exciting to me as well. So just have a look at this.
Let's take a sneak peek at a new generative AI feature in Fabric that will enable custom Q&A experiences for your data. I'll start by creating a new item in Fabric, for now called AI Skill, and I'll give it a name. Then I'll select the data source I want to use. In this case, a lakehouse. I can then select the set of tables I want the Q&A to focus on. And immediately I can start asking questions about my data, even without any configuration. It shows me the query it generated to find the answer. And I can even adjust my Q&A experience by adding more tables, setting additional context, and configure settings. As you can see, I've added additional notes for the model, like specific terminology I know may come up in users' questions. To save time, I could even upload contextual documents for it to scan. And just like that, I've created a Q&A experience that can quickly and easily answer questions about my data. This Q&A experience can be used by data professionals in Fabric, working with the data, or even embedded into apps for business users to query.
Has anybody heard about RAG? Retrieval Augmented Generation? Yep. Think about this as RAG. So you provide a custom set of documents, data, information, whatever you want. This will generate an endpoint for you. You can publish that endpoint and you can just hit the endpoint with the question and it will provide you with the feedback or the answer of that. So that is pretty cool because now you can have relational data and you can do RAG across it. All right, that makes me excited, but not everybody else. So, sorry. All right, so yeah. And as I said at the beginning, your data is your data. And because I work for Microsoft, I would like to tell you, and I have to tell you, and I want to tell you that your data is your data, right? We do not cache your data. We do not use your data. If we do, we get in trouble, right? So your data is protected. There's more standards for SOC, FedRAMP, PII, PCI available than most organizations. And if you think about it, we've got more security certifications done externally to us and for us by external parties than anybody that's available. Why are you laughing at me?
Well, the ladies are just having such
Oh.
a good time.
They always do.
Chris, what about the metadata or the process that you're doing? Not sorry, the physical data itself, but the actual metadata of your process of how and what you're doing. Is that recorded as well?
No. So we
Oh, okay.
we don't record any of that. In the past, yes, so we don't record that. We don't use that for training at any way or any sense. So what we actually do is, and this is most probably not wildly and widely known, is that Microsoft employs or is one of the biggest employers of language graduates in America. So if somebody steps out of their uni with an English degree or French or Latin or something in that regard, Microsoft would approach them, come work for us. And they specifically help with the prompt engineering in this regard. So yeah.
Is there any component of data quality as well?
Data quality in what regard?
Missing data out of context. If the source data is itself, before investing into the one lake thing, if my source data is, say has missing data or it is out of context or it is, there are 7 different degrees in which we can define data quality. So in that aspect, does it have something like that?
So we've got Purview that will look at the data once the data has been ingested. So we'll scan it and it will tell you there's maybe something in this regard that's not, there's a null value in there and flag it and raise it up. But if you want specific checks beforehand, it's advisable to do that before you ingest it into the lake, if you only want your pure data or clean data in there, because that can be seen as the raw data, and then you transform it into the medallion architecture of silver and gold or platinum, and depending how many layers you want.
It has to be applied before ingestion. If I have to do some specific checks.
Yep. So then that's one way of doing it. That would be the better way, in my opinion. But you can also apply masking, all those kind of things once it's in there. So rather leave the raw data as the raw data, do some ETL on that or ELT, then put it in the bronze, because now you know it's been classified and cleansed and cleaned and curated. Then you can start moving it through the different layers. If that makes sense. Yep.
Watch.
Elmo, thank you. All right, I've got 5 minutes.
Looks like the best one.
Just go escape from this guy.
3 minutes, 5 seconds to go.
All right. Okay, so I can, this is just taxi data, all right, that's been pulled in and effectively put into a lakehouse. So we can iterate through this a little bit with Copilot if you choose, or I can show you a skill, or I can show you there are pre-canned demos. Let me go back to the pre-canned demos that I can show you, and then we can come back to this. Right, so you can go explore the examples. Right, so these are pre-canned, pre-compiled, everything's available for you to use in this regard. All you effectively do is select it, put it in a lakehouse, connect the Spark cluster and run it. Right, this will do ML flow for you. We'll be able to do Copilot on top of that if you choose it to do so. So there's various things you can do with the existing examples. So that's available for you out of the box, and you can use and tailor and play a little bit with that. I think just for the sake of interest, because this is maybe a little bit faster, let's just grab that AI skill and wait, see if I can do that for us. So this is in preview. Right now, I'm going to borrow one of my colleagues' lake houses. That's the other thing that's pretty cool about this. It's all in one lake, so I've got access to the other lake houses that's available, right?
They're all on different tenants.
No, this is the same tenant. All right, fantastic. So now we're going to get started. I'm going to say that. Or let's rephrase. Can I have a volunteer to give me, so just background of the data set, this is the yellow cab data in the US that pick up people and drop off people at various locations, various times of day and night actually, various amounts of people, everything in that regard. So can I have a volunteer to give me a question?
What is the longest quiet time in the central districts?
Can I say CBD?
Yeah.
If you're happy with that. Let's have a look. So what it's doing, it's now scanning through, it's creating a query by using the LLM and then scanning, and we are basically using that query to run across the data sets we've selected in this regard. Might take some time because there's a couple of million, if not billion rows in that Parquet files, but it will get to it. There we go. Like I said, it used CBD as the location. Failed on us. And that's the thing, right? It's not always perfect, as I said. So this is good and bad because it failed. I feel a bit silly, but it's a good thing that it failed because you now see that it's not always perfect.
There's no parameters on quiet time.
Could be, most probably. So we can say, what is the most popular destination? Let's see. It could also be that my data set hasn't been purely and perfectly curated as well, though, right? And that's where you guys step in. Right. So it came up with Upper East North. Right, so that's my query was what's the most popular destination? So it had to interpret the pickup zone, because if you have a look at the file, it will say it's a zone, it's not a location. It cross correlates that with the zone and then accumulates or calculates what is the biggest number in this regard. So it's upper east side north, and that's the query and the SQL it created to do that and determine that for you. So to me, that's pretty awesome. If I wanted to, I can publish this. And then if I publish this to an endpoint, then effectively I can hit it with anything else via authenticated mechanisms to make sure I am who I am, and then get the answer. All right. And that's me. I'm calling Alma because I'm 2 minutes over. So, yep.
Just want to bring Zant back onto the stage in case there are any last minute questions before we wrap up.
Come back.
Got a query. Let's
Yeah.
say you created some interesting queries like that.
Yeah.
And we publish them onto a central repository so the other data engineers can leverage that one.
So we don't have the capability yet of having a centralized prompt, but if you have a look at Azure Machine Learning Studio, there is a prompt catalog in there that you can use to do that. So there is a catalog already for prompts and those kind of things, but we don't publish anything in this regard back and forth in this regard to do that, because that could be sensitive as well. So yes. Anything else?
The cost in terms of running your compute capacity when you question?
Good question. So no, there's no additional cost per Copilot or per anything in Fabric. But there's always a but with Microsoft, right? You need to have a P1 capacity or F64. So that's the entry level to get Copilots. That's a F64.
Which is what you need for Fabric anyway.
You can start with the F2. So that is $200 a month if you keep it running 24/7, right? But a P1 F64 has got the same cost as it is. So it's typically aimed more at enterprise, to be honest, rather at individuals running things. But you can, if you choose to have various workspaces, those various workspaces can be allocated to different capacities. Those capacities can be for anything from an F2 to an F256.
Work for real life giving data as well. So
Yes.
if I have a data set which is getting updated like sign-in logs or device events, etc.
So that's what you use something like Data Activator. So Data Activator would, for instance, capture real-time streaming in. Let's see the temperature as an example, right? So you have the temperature measure that sends through your IoT device, pings that through every, Shemaine would know, let's say 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, all right? What it pings you through. Then if the temperature drops or goes beyond a certain threshold, then a certain action can be performed by Data Activator. Data Activator will then call out to something else and say, oh, heat the room or decrease the temperature of the room. So yes, it could. Yes.
So I had a question from someone earlier about where can they access the recording. So everything on today's session, we have a YouTube channel, believe it or not. It's been running for a couple of years now. I have posted the link to the YouTube channel in our meetup chat.